All right, so thank you very much again for joining us. People are still coming in as we start, but we will get started. Appreciate everyone's time, and it's obviously a busy period in the business world right now. Once again, huge thank you to obviously our corporate partners and partners for making ARC360 happen. It's obviously in a slightly different guise today. We obviously were meant to be at the British Motor Museum. Things obviously changed there, and then we've kind of moved across to Zoom and the digital platform. So it's an exciting sort of innovation, evolution of things. But thank you very much for those guys, obviously, for supporting us and making this all possible. So we're obviously going to have a conversation today with Marc around obviously the Vela business first and foremost. And Marc was obviously due to talk at the ARC360 event. We've been planning this for obviously a couple of months. I think we've been in communication, talking about what we were going to focus on and various other bits. And then, of course, in the last 2 weeks, kind of all of a sudden, you know, we're in the midst of a pandemic, and the business world is kind of evolving rapidly. So we're going to touch upon obviously all those subject matters, what Marc's seeing from a repairer perspective right now out there in the market, and how the business is dealing with the various challenges that are out there. So welcome, Marc.
Thanks, Mark.
Great to have you along. Thank you very much indeed for your time, and I know you're obviously a busy man at the moment.
Very, very.
But still smiling. Well, that's a good thing. So if you could, again, you know, just provide everyone with a little bit of context in terms of the Vela Group. I imagine most people have heard of the Vela Group in terms of a repair group, but if you can, just give us a kind of, you know, moment in time picture of the business.
Yeah, I'll have to be really careful because I've seen Carl as message, so he's obviously keeping an eye on me there. I don't say anything too bad. So obviously I'm managing director of the Vela Group. We have 8 body shops predominantly around the northwest, although we do have one in Herefordshire as well. Probably just over 200 staff, turnover run rate probably just over 20 million. We would class ourselves mainly as you know, following on from Eddie's side, you know, B2B. We're predominantly in the insurer, fleet, and claims management would be our primary customers. We don't really operate in the retail sector, apart from add-on sales and that kind of thing. So that's us.
Okay, super stuff. Number of sorry, did I miss it? Did you say the number of sites you're currently operating? I know we've talked about this in recent weeks. Yeah,
8 at the moment. Well, 8 in 2 weeks. It'll be 8. Yeah.
Okay, right. Okay, so things are still developing. And I was, you know, we've obviously been talking, as I say, over this period of time. We were at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and what was really interesting is, whilst the conversation was talking about obviously the coronavirus and the health issues that bring, you then kind of said, well, in terms of traffic volumes as well, which I thought was a really interesting point, because it was the point that kind of nobody had actually mentioned to me during the course of the day. So a few weeks back, we were talking potential plans for growth across the business, how you had a certain growth team within the business and operating as sort of separate entities or separate units within the business, should I say. You know, what's happened in the past few weeks in terms of, you know, the business structure, its sort of focus and everything else?
Oh, well, obviously the main bit's been the coronavirus and the speed and impact that's having. In terms of our plans, yeah, we were all systems go on growth. You know, plan A was to consolidate and grow our footprint and size. You know, being honest, we've taken that business plan, put it on the shelf, give it a loving rub, and said, hopefully we can come back to you in a little bit, and broken the glass and pressed the red button, unfortunately. So you know, that's where we are from a planning stage. Obviously the good thing for us is that the skill set we had in our growth team was predominantly, you know, through experience and what that has enabled us to do is then almost move that team to be focused on coronavirus, both from the virus itself and the economic impact that it's going to have. So although we could see it as a disadvantage in terms of we've had this group of people that were focused on something that's not happening now, we've been able to react quite quickly and almost still keep, when I say business as usual, I don't know if that is a term that's going to be used for the foreseeable, but keep the wheels turning and then the cars being fixed, as well as then having a group of people, including myself, that are focused on what's going on around us.
Yeah, okay. And in terms of kind of your perspective or your view on where this is heading, and it's very difficult to say. We're in the midst of something that's kind of moving rapidly. But are you working in terms of timelines, short, medium, long term kind of strategies that you've got in place here?
Yeah, but I think like anything, when you're, depending where you are in your business cycle, your planning cycles will change. So, sometimes a business might operate annually, might operate quarterly, might operate weekly. We immediately went into kind of daily thinking, and from daily thinking, we've actually gone into almost half day, hourly kind of thinking. That we're seeing three primary elements to us. Obviously, we've got the virus itself and the safety concerns of our staff and the customers and our suppliers and the wider families around that. That is obviously concern number one. There's nothing more important than people's health.
Yeah.
So we've obviously got that one that we've tried to put in place. Then we've got the business continuity through that. From staffing, we've currently got 12 staff in isolation. One is quarantined in the Maldives, so he's a very lucky fella. He's obviously done really well to manage to get out there and get himself quarantined. But so out of 200 plus staff, we've got about 12 that probably will continue. So again, we've got that wider impact of keeping the wheels turning, being engaged with our supply chain, making sure from parts, paint, those kind of elements, and following on from Eddie's presentation, the communication up to us from our supply chain's been really good, really strong. We're feeling in the loop, but it's going to get more difficult from a supply chain point of view. So obviously we're keeping one eye on that business element and the impact that's going to have. And then the third one, which I don't think we can ignore, is the economic hit that is coming fast. And the bit we've looked at and talked about is the last recession was kind of a gradual decline as things deteriorated. This one's going to be as close to a cliff as you can imagine. The looking at the roads, we're going to go from cars on the road last week to minimal cars on the road. Levels of unemployment are going to, it's not going to be a slow deterioration amongst businesses. Now you look at the airlines, they've not let 5% go, then 5% go, then 5% go. They've closed shop. So the plan in our end is that the economic hit is going to be really sudden, and obviously for us, in line with the business continuity, is making sure that we're in a good position to get through that, really.
Yeah, definitely. And by the way, everyone who's tuned in, this is Marc. He's kind of no economic or coronavirus expert. It's fair to say, isn't it, Marc?
I have watched a lot of news,
but yeah, keeping his eye on the news and what's out there. So please, those who are tuned in, hands up, and I can kind of come to you, and you can contribute and/or send us a Q&A or a message in the chat, because it would be great to have the involvement of everyone here. We already said it's kind of during Eddie's presentation. Nobody's kind of alone in this. We need to kind of help each other circumnavigate as best we can what is likely to come. So really appreciate it, obviously, Marc, with you sharing your thoughts on this.
And I think, sorry, Marc, just to jump in, the only bit I'd say is I think we're all realizing that. I think, one, none of us have ever watched so much news, but two, the news the next day is completely different. And that's why our time and planning has changed so much, because what was the plan yesterday sometimes isn't the plan the next day. So even everything we go over today, when Boris gets on stage later, it may be different tomorrow.
Yeah.
So, that's the other big caveat we've got to say is, this is my thoughts right now, but they were different yesterday and they were different on Friday.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of, obviously you're kind of where you're looking now, is, the business, is the scale of the business, and that's always one thing that kind of fascinates me. Are theoretically groups in a better position to kind of manage these kind of happenings? Not that it's ever happened before, but or is there more flexibility in smaller operations? What's your thoughts around there?
Well, obviously, I think you'd be disappointed if I didn't answer yes. I think the groups are in a good position. Obviously, we've got the disadvantage of our overheads will be higher. We will be carrying more cost, but from multiple directions. Obviously, from a capacity point of view, we have, when we've had absences at the moment, we've been able to move staff around. We have centralized resource, so we've been able to keep the wheels kind of spinning, keep cars being fixed, keep customers being spoke to. We have got that flexibility to do that, and again, probably in-house, maybe compared to an independent. We have our own HR finance team, so when I went to that growth team, we've got the level of support I've got from a communication to staff, from a planning perspective. That's really, he says, hopefully gonna help us get through this. So from a group point of view, that's probably the offsets the disadvantage of maybe carrying that cost.
Yeah. And something in terms of, again, we spoke about it. We spoke about it earlier, but splitting the business into sort of operational units as such. That's obviously a real advantage. We sort of said about the fact that everyone has become kind of so absorbed in this, it becomes a real distraction in terms of everyone's looking in one direction.
Yeah.
Very easy to drop the ball elsewhere. So again, if you can just expand in terms of how that is assisting you as an operation.
Yeah, well, it's really difficult to keep everyone focused on the day job. I think all of us have got one eye on the news. All of us have got one eye on loved ones and the health and safety bit. So for us, we are trying to keep our core business focused on obviously dealing with some of the disruptions, but focused on keeping the cars being fixed and going out. And then from a leadership team, we have currently it's a daily call where it's our Corona call, unfortunately. We have the leadership team and the site management teams. We go through any issues, any health issues, any change in legislation, any good practice that's come along, anyone's got any suggestions, any concerns, any communication that they feel that we should be getting out. We sent a lengthy memo out to all staff, just trying to communicate. For us, we've got to try and communicate to 200 and something people consistently.
Yeah.
So getting that message consistent across the business is important to us as well. So we use that resource to make sure we're trying to communicate as much as possible. And again, we've got to be really careful of not saying to people, it's fine, carry on, because we are asking them to behave differently. We are asking them to think about their own safety, the customer's safety, and the supply chain safety. But also we have got to say we've still got a job to do. We've still got to try and get people's cars back on the road and keep that going. So we're trying to multi-juggle, where we are. Sounds really bizarre to say, but it is business as usual for us. We are functioning as per normal, but with just a few caveats in there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it almost kind of has to be that way. Externally, what's the kind of communication been like between yourselves and your various supply chain? Again, kind of referring back to Eddie's presentation, really. What's been happening or taking place there?
From us, in terms of communication from distribution and supply that way, it's been good, both again in terms of the three different areas we talked about, in terms of best practice and safety. One, they've been communicating what they would like and what they're doing with their staff, but when we've asked them, how we would like them to behave when they're on our sites, everyone's been really accommodating. So, I think that's a shout out to our industry that, something like this has kicked in and, immediately everyone has bought into it and got on with it. From communication to insurers, again, I think most of them are just saying, keep us in the loop. We're trying to update them daily if there's going to be any service interruptions. I think a lot of them are being flexible already in terms of expectation, in terms of interruption, and in terms of allowing us to operate outside the norm, really. People are allowing things like customer sign-off sheets aren't insisting that they have to be signed to allow us to be paid and things like that. And, we're already having calls with insurers who are saying, despite, and it may be due to the relationship we've got, but, they are our customers, but they're talking to us saying, what can we do to help? Which is great. When your customers are saying to you, how do we help you? That's really, a good reflection on our industry, really, despite what people may say.
Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of communication with other kind of repairers, are you speaking to others out there? And what are you hearing from others?
Well, this is our industry, so you'd be disappointed if we weren't all talking to each other. I think a similar thing. I think we're all expecting a hit in volume, and I think the pandemic on its own we could cope with. I think the industry is resilient and is capable of getting through multiple challenges. We probably, it's like something from a film. I never thought this would be one of them. You're looking at your business continuity plans and you flick into the pandemic page and realizing you maybe didn't get that far. But we're really good at coping and reacting really quickly and proactively to things that we think are going to come. What is a worry to us and is always a concern is volume. Without cars to fix, that makes it difficult. And I think the thought on everyone's mind is what's going to happen with volumes. We've all been driving to work, we're all out there and we're all seeing what the roads are like. We're all seeing what has happened in other countries, and we're expecting a sharp drop in volume, and it's already here, and that's before maybe some other measures that may or may not come.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, a couple of questions have come in. One in terms of the future. So beyond coronavirus, this ultimately will pass, and we will move on from this. Are you even kind of considering that point in terms of business strategy right now, or is it purely let's deal with this and see where we are beyond?
I think we've got both elements to look at. I think obviously, hopefully Carl reassured listening in, but we look not to scaremonger, but plan number one is business continuity, as in still being here. That's the primary one for me as the person running the business. So we are looking at what we have to do short term to make sure we're okay. But yes, coming out on the other side, we've got one eye to it, but not being so presumptuous. I don't think any of us know, the length of time this is going to be in effect. You read something that says 14 weeks, and then you read something that says June next year, and that's just on the viral impact, let alone the economic impact. So yeah, we always plan for the long term, but our primary focus is business continuity. But we're not going to take any actions that are going to have a detrimental long-term effect as much as possible. But I think for all of us, we're all going to have some really, 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 really tough decisions to make.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question just coming in. Yesterday's rescue package that was announced, 300 billion, was it? I think.
Yeah.
How far is that going to go? Will that help? Are you looking at the government to do more?
Well, again, this is my opinion. So taking on a loan to support yourself in the short term, it may help, but you're still going to have to carry out actions. I think it'd be dangerous to assume that a short-term hit of cash will be okay. So we're obviously looking at it in terms of, one of the first things we did early last week was make sure we'd secured funding lines with our bank. That was early last week. Again, one of the advantages of having someone who's just looking at finance was their first concern was working capital and cash flow. So yeah, I think having the option for secured loans are there, but again, when you get back to when you come out the other side, you're going to be debted up. It's not a grant, it's a loan. You're going to have to pay it back. So yeah, we're looking at it, but whether that's the complete solution, I very much doubt it, because you have got the wider economic impact to consider and how long that's going to be around. Yeah. So we're all going to have to take actions thinking based around that, I believe anyway.
Yeah. And when we spoke yesterday, we talked a little bit about speed of movement being key. Again, kind of explain a little bit in terms of your thoughts around that, really.
In terms of which bit? Sorry, Mark.
In terms of speed of movement, you've got to act.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, very much so, and that's where I said, in comparison to the last recession, the credit crunch, that obviously the actual recession was, I think, officially 18 months long. As an industry, we felt it a bit longer, but it was a steady decline of volume, X amount. This is just going to be harsh and sharp. Yeah. So from an action point of view, people are going to have to act quickly, because it's not going to be a steady decline, I don't think.
Okay. Another question coming in, and it's one all businesses are faced with: potential closures of schools. How does that kind of impact upon your business as you see it?
Yeah, well, we're looking at it, and we do have people who we are flexible with on working around school hours in terms of pickup and collection. So we're obviously trying to think ahead and say we would have to look at flexing opening hours, see whether we could do anything to support with earlier working, later working, compared to a lot of industries. I can't get that many people working from home. Mm-hmm. We've got to keep people in, so being flexible on working, maybe working hours, holiday entitlement, all those kind of things. It's, again, you look at it, and if the schools close, I can't see it being for a short period of time. Everything I'm reading says it'll be for a while. Yeah. So for us, I think flexible working patterns in terms of opening and closing times will be one. That's great. So that's the primary one we're looking at.
Brilliant. Now, amongst all of this, and it's it kind of seems slightly wrong to consider opportunities, but there inevitably will be whenever it comes to instances like this in the business world. Do you see any positives or opportunities emerging from all of this ultimately?
I think from being a supplier, our position hasn't really changed in terms of, again, following on from Eddie's presentation, really, we look to make sure we deliver what our customers want, and work with them on delivering a solution to them. So I think the opportunities would be the same ones we had based our growth plans on. It may be opportunities are being on maintenance now rather than growth, but we'd like to think, most people are looking at it and saying the network and the industry is going to look different at the end of this, and that people make decisions that are based on what they would like the industry to look like when they come out the other side. Mm-hmm. So when we're talking and thinking about what actions we take, we do have some short-term decisions to make, all of us, but we're also thinking about, well, what are we going to be left with at the end? Yeah. So for us, what we offer and how we function. You know, we train, we invest in equipment and technology and those kind of bits. And you know, our plan is that there's going to be insurers that have still got one eye on that and saying that's what we want, and that won't change, because however long this takes, there will need to be a repair solution on the other side of this. So we are still looking at it and still looking at what we would like to be like when we come out the other side. But yeah, so we are thinking about it. But as I said, you know, the immediate one is what do we need to do? But then that's where we have our core, you know, our core competencies and what defines us and our values. And we say, you know, we can't really compromise them unless we think the industry is going to completely change. But if we think, you know, when this is passed, our solution is still the solution that people will want, then we need to try and stay true to that as much as we can.
Yeah. And does it, in terms of kind of, you know, business models, competition's likely to get pretty tough in terms of those offering, and we've seen in recent years different business repair models come to market. Are we going to see competition heat up, i.e. are more traditional repairers going to start looking for those smaller repairs once again, or, you know, and vice versa? How's that, do you think, is going to pan out?
Yeah, well, I don't think we stopped looking, and maybe there was a different proposition out there which certain people decided to go with, and other insurers and fleets didn't. So I don't think that will change. I think it will remain competitive. You know, the last recession, repairers got creative to get through, and I think we are going to maybe have to flex our business models a little bit, but without deviating too far, really. But I think everyone's going to do what they need to do. Yeah,
that's fair enough. So again, any comments, any conversations that anyone wants to kind of contribute, then please, you know, do raise a hand. This is kind of Marc on a whim here, kind of giving us a great insight into obviously the Vela Group, but there are obviously plenty of you out there in terms of facing the same challenges. But based on what we know at this moment in time, how do you see it kind of beyond coronavirus? And it's a very kind of, you know, flippant comment to make and easy thing to say, but how will this, you know, impact on the repair sector, you know, broader than just obviously the Vela Group? You know, dare I say, are we going to see, you know, the groups really kind of, you know, come to the fore and start to, you know, dominate, for want of a better term, the market? You know, how do you see sort of a longer term projection in the coming years of how this will really influence the market?
Obviously, our plan was based around, we saw it as a consolidating market at the time. So that may change. Obviously, we're going to have a look at how long this goes on and how many habits people are going to develop actually become the norm. You know, you look at different industries. Will cinemas come back? If everyone gets so used to watching Netflix, is anyone going to come back and say, I do want to go to the cinema? Is the high street going to come back like it was? Whether this is going to accelerate some of the cultural things we've slowly seen happening, whether that's happened just really quickly now. Yeah. So for us, you know, we're looking at that and trying to say, and this is why we're trying to have, you know, one eye on both, is to say what's it going to look like when we're going to come back? How much of the behaviours people are going to adapt? You know, if everyone suddenly realises that working from home is really efficient and convenient, how many people are then going to go and drive and have a meeting in the coffee shop when they've just realised, well, actually, it wasn't so hard to do it over the internet? So, you know, we're looking at those bits, but then from what the repair industry looks like, people are still going to crash cars. That it's still going to be, the VMs aren't going to stop, you know, increasing the level of technology in cars. It's still going to be the same things that, you know, we were going to be talking about. It's quite nice to have something where we're not talking about AI and you know, all those kind of things, but I think that's going to get back on the agenda. I just don't know when that's going to be. So for us, we are still looking to that when we come out the other side, that maybe this will the kind of disruptions in other industries might just filter through to ours, and there may just be some people who make decisions that say, you know, enough's enough. I don't know, you know, I really don't know, and it depends on how harsh and for how long the drop in volumes is. And I'm an employee, you know, so I operate as an employee. For a lot of people, their businesses are their retirement, their pension, their life, really. So for a lot of people, there's multiple questions to be asking themselves at this point.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. I mean, you know, again, brilliant insight. I think, you know, there are going to be an awful lot of learnings and cross-industry learnings as well. You know, we're not in this alone. It's obviously having a huge impact on our sector. That's the, you know, the industry we know. That's the one we can talk about. But beyond that, you know, every industry is sort of adapting and evolving to this as it happens. So I think, you know, looking beyond the realms or the four walls of what we know, you know, there could be some real kind of, you know, good takeaways that may be implemented across our industry. So amazing stuff, right? I'm again very conscious of time. We have got more questions coming in, but what I think we'll do, Marc, is get these across to you.
I can be flexible if you want, or I can just respond in writing, up to you.
Yeah, so what we'll do a follow-up, give you a little bit of breathing space, because again, I appreciate it. You've given up your time, you've given up your personal insight and certainly one from obviously the Vela Group as well. So it's really, really great stuff, fascinating to gain that insight. What I'll do is we'll get in contact with you, we'll follow up with those questions, and we'll publish those via our channels, just to make sure that everyone is still in the loop. As I say, to anyone who's tuned in, listening, please make your own contributions. You know, ARC360, we want to hear from you. We want to kind of pull the industry together at this moment in time. So anything that you guys have got that you can chip in, weigh in with, would be most appreciated. And again, you know, I'm sure Marc would like to hear anyone's feedback who's listened in and has got any thoughts or ideas in terms of, you know, how to support the industry as a whole. So fantastic stuff, Marc. Really appreciate your time. Let you get back to another coronavirus conversation, I'm sure. But take care, and wishing you all the best.
Yeah, thanks, Marc. Thanks, everyone. Cheers.
Cheers, Marc.